Right, oil is down despite the Saudi concern and the back and forth between our two countries over the death of Jamal Khashoggi, the Washington Post journalist. But a lot of this has to do with the Saudis promising not to make oil a weapon here or use it as it was used in the 70s as sort of a leverage over the United States and the world at the time that extracted much higher prices, ultimately boomeranged on the Saudis themselves, so they don't want to repeat that part of history. Former Shell Oil President John Hofmeister on all of this. What do you make of it, John?
Well, I think we may well see a charm offensive, Neil. As they try to explain the situation, they do have resources in place to do a charm offensive with the kind of people that are over Europe and all over the U.S. But I do think they would do more harm to themselves by going negative and by really withdrawing oil from production. Because, yes, as you said, it would hurt them in the long term. In the short term, they'd make a lot of money. But over the longer term, it would destroy growth in the global economy. And then they'd go through such demand destruction that they would regret having withheld production because they would have a permanent loss. The other thing that they could do, which is very negative, is, as many people in China or Russia have proposed, de-dollarize oil. In other words, take the oil price off the U.S. dollar. That would have devastating consequences, in my opinion, on the U.S. economy in the first instance, and globally it would also have impact.
Why? Explain
but China
why
and Russia would be very happy.
That would be the case, because that has been bandied about.
Well, it would be because the value of the dollar would drop so quickly, so dramatically, it would just unsettle the financial markets, and the sell-off would be absolutely huge. And with that sell-off, you would have all kinds of wondering going on, all kinds of doubts about the resilience of the American economy, and suddenly people stop buying, and they just don't know what to do. And the financial firms are saying, you know, they're going into very difficult times, and that will affect their reserve balance, and it just goes on and on. It's one multiplier after another to where everyone is living in fear of a recession, which we would probably have, and all of the growth that we've been experiencing would just disappear.
Is it your sense that whatever happened to this journalist and how it happened, that the Saudi kingdom and the alternating stories just can't be trusted? Now, it would not be the first leadership for which we've had a raised eyebrow response, but I'm wondering if the Crown Prince remains in power and his father says you can stay in power. Things have got to change. I don't know if it'd be evident in oil prices, but it is going to change the landscape a little bit, isn't it?
Well, I would predict the following. One, there will be ultimately as much disclosure as possible, and we should push for that because it holds the Saudis accountable. And that disclosure, just the demand for more and more is a good thing. But it also buys time for the Saudis, and that's what they're counting on. Buy time, use the charm offensive, keep denying the involvement of the monarchy in the decision-making, leave it at the security division level, and see if time won't just heal some of that wound.
But do you think that's possible, John, especially when the 18 Saudis who've been rounded up include a communications director to the Crown Prince, his top military guy, as well as that for King Salman in Yemen? I mean, these are not lower-ranking officials. These are pretty high up.
It really smells, doesn't it? I mean, it really does smell. And I don't know how to get away from that smell other than time will tell. But, you know, we've used time to our advantage, and so have other countries, when it comes to other very difficult situations. People tend to diminish the intensity of their feeling over time. And I think there will be accountabilities, but I don't think they will necessarily be visible to us. I think there may be things that are done that are painful to the monarchy, but we don't make a lot of press out of it. And even though the Washington Post and others may try, I think it will be more on the difficulty of reaching agreement in the future. The Saudis need us, if not more than we need them. And that mutual relationship, as with other countries, I think is important over time. The Saudis are not the only country to do bad things. There are many countries that do bad things. And somehow our tolerance over time gets us through it.
All right, we'll see. John Hofmeister, the former Shell Oil president, thank you very much.